What's up, YouTube? It's your boy KingMarcell, and I'm back with another video. Today we are about to be looking into all of the Diddy allegations. So if you've been living under a rock, I guess you haven't heard about, you know what I'm saying, Diddy having his compounds raided, and you know what I'm saying, all of the sex trafficking allegations that been coming out against him. So we about to check out all of the allegations so that we all up to part on exactly what's going on. Let's get into it. Oh. Make sure you like the video and subscribe.
Sean Diddy Combs. More specifically, the raids that have been conducted at homes linked to the rapper, producer, entertainment mogul. If you're new to this story, Homeland Security, they conducted these searches on these properties in Los Angeles and Miami. Reporting indicates that this is in connection to an ongoing investigation through the Southern District of New York. Now, the raids came amid several different civil lawsuits filed in recent months accusing the rapper and others of sex trafficking, sexual assault, rape, domestic violence. It goes on and on. It's absolutely horrific. But around the time...
And then again, remember what I was talking about in the last video, that it was more than just two properties. They said that a property in New York got raided too. I think that's some of the information that's coming out too.
These raids, Diddy was reportedly last seen pacing back and forth outside of a Miami airport. There was a video that circulated.
That man was stressing,
accompanied by some family members. Now, at the time, the 54-year-old rapper was not detained. He cooperated with authorities. He was not arrested. Let's make that clear. However, I should tell you, in the latest development, Diddy's associate, alleged drug mule, Brendan Paul, was arrested and charged, but with possession of cocaine and marijuana. Now, Combs' attorney, Aaron Dyer, responded to the raid.
I'm not getting that. What are they saying, that he had the drugs on him then and now when they was just on the plane? Is that what they said? And that's why he was arrested, because when they ran into him, they found drugs on him?
Aides yesterday saying, quote, "Yesterday, there was a gross overuse of military-level force as search warrants were executed at Mr. Combs' residences. There is no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility exhibited by authorities or the way his children and employees were treated." Dyer went on to say that the raids were, quote, "a premature rush to judgment of Mr. Combs that is nothing more than a witch hunt based on meritless accusations made in civil lawsuits. There has been no finding of criminal activity or civil liability with any..."
They're going to say that now, but my thing is that the lawyers wasn't saying nothing until Diddy got found. They was all radio silent all the way up until that man got caught. But now they got so much to say.
Those allegations. Mr. Combs is innocent and will continue to fight every single day to clear his name. Now, remember, Combs has not been criminally charged in connection with any of these allegations. One of those lawsuits was already settled. The other ones are still ongoing. So that is correct. There has been no, he's not been found guilty of anything. He's not been charged. There is no civil liability yet. But as the story develops, we're going to bring you the very latest. There's a lot to get into. In the meantime, we are going to dive into this live chat, live Q&A for the rest of the hour. Again, Facebook, X, YouTube, submit your questions. We'll bring them on the air. Now, to help me answer this, you don't want to just hear from me. I am joined by long-time legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer, who's right here in studio with me, and retired FBI agent Colin Schmidt out of Los Angeles. We're going to get right to it. Gentlemen, good to see you. First of all, Colin, were you anywhere near the raids in LA? I think I should ask you that first. And has your traffic been interrupted in any way?
No, I'm in Southwest Riverside County, so I wasn't down there. And that neighborhood's a little bit above my income level.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. So we have a question now. This is from Chocolo, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to mess up these names a lot. The first step is admitting it. I'm going to mess up these names a lot. Chocolo 8 Milk from YouTube. FBI, I thought this was Homeland Security that raided Diddy's mansions because their specialty is investigating human trafficking. I throw it to you, Colin, just a general idea about the fact that you had the Homeland Security being the ones who actually conducted the raid.
Right.
Well, they have the same authorities as the FBI does, and based upon their connection to the border and a lot of the things that are going on there, they've gotten a lot more involved in the human trafficking side of the crimes that are going on in the country. And frankly, they do a fantastic job. And obviously, they had a lot of resources there for a reason. And I would be interested whenever we have that opportunity to see the affidavit that supports that warrant.
All right, so I'm glad we cleared that part up because who conducted it tells us a lot about this. There's also a preliminary question I want to now go to Brian about. This is from Nikki's Girl from YouTube. Question is, they say it's a trafficking case, so who is he trafficking to? I get that he is involved, however, who else is involved? It's a really good question when we talk about...
Exactly.
Set your kids up for success.
They're making it seem like it's just like a couple instances. There must be a whole organization, a
hey,
whole,
I'm Hannah
you know what I'm saying,
check out my haul from eBay Motors
that,
to get this charger to rip.
is making it so that they they are able to continue to do it, and he's made so much money off of it. I'm sorry, I still got this video going in my ear. I don't want to show y'all the ads, but it's the fact that all of this stuff is going on and they acting like they don't know that it's deeper than
what exactly
what's just
is
being said on
sex
the news.
Trafficking? What are the elements? Who would
that
he
is
be involved
way
with?
more people involved.
Yeah, so human trafficking and then the more specific sex trafficking is simply transporting someone that affects interstate commerce. Usually that's just traveling across state lines and participating in sexual misconduct in one way, shape, or form. So if you look at the Cassie lawsuit or you look at the Rodney Jones Jr. lawsuit, where there are civil allegations that people were brought across state lines for the purpose of coercing them to have sex, that would be trafficking. It would be the individual that you're moving from one place to another, or the person that you're having them engage in sexual conduct in that state or that area would be the trafficking. It's a little different than what we typically think of just someone putting another person in a vehicle and moving them to another state. It's the sexual activities that occur in the different states as you move them from one place to another.
That's a good point. I'm glad you broke that down. I want to go to Colin for this. So this is a really good question from an equally amazing name. It's cats.addict from YouTube. I'm glad you admitted your addiction. Again, first step is admitting it. The question is, Prince Harry named in Diddy's lawsuit, true or not? Now, I can tell you, as far as I know, Colin, in the lawsuit, they're referring to the Little Rod Jones lawsuit. This is Diddy's former producer, accused him of sexual assault, sexual harassment. Encourage everybody to check out the lawsuit. This is actually the amended lawsuit right here. I know it seems like a lot, but it's actually a disturbing read, to say the least. My understanding is Harry is one of the people, a celebrity name associated with Diddy, which, by the way, I don't think there's any more mention in that, but I think the bigger issue is when you're dealing with high-profile cases like this, and we said the same thing with the Ghislaine Maxwell and the release of all those documents, you're going to hear names. Doesn't mean they're implicated in any way or they're criminally responsible in any way. It's just a connection, a celebrity connection to Diddy. What's your take on it? Because federal authorities have to be very careful and sensitive to who is discussed in these kinds of investigations.
Did he know? Didn't everybody?
Well, I think a lot of times they'll put names in there. I mean, that it's truthful. I mean, they have to swear to the affidavit, but make it even more salacious to get more attention. It's unlikely Prince Harry had anything to do with this. He was it's from what I understand from the news reports, he just attended a party and he was just listed in the lawsuit as just one of the attendees, but there was absolutely no inclination or no accusation against him or anybody that's in his circle.
I will tell you, if it comes out that Diddy or anybody in his inner circle are ultimately charged with the worst of crimes that we're talking about here, sex trafficking charges, then it goes into a conversation like we had with the Weinstein case or even the Epstein case. Was this just known and never discussed? Was this just known and nobody came forward? Those are going to be some tough questions. But we're not at that point yet. But Brian, I go to you now because
that's why the celebrities are mentioned, because were they around? Was Prince Harry ever around when these things took place? Was he ever in one of these freak-offs? If he was he one of the ones who did one of these things to the minors? And we don't know how deep it's gone because of how long it's been going on. This stuff been going on for decades. Even before Diddy, this
is actually two questions that I think are equally important. One is from Davo from YouTube. Well, first let me do this one. This is the Expat Exchange from YouTube. Based on the information known, what charges is Diddy likely to be hit with? RICO? And then also throw this one from me. This is Davo from YouTube. What's the sentence if charged and found guilty?
So let me put it this way. We don't know anything about the investigation in this case. We know that it's sex trafficking, and we are connecting the dots as best as we can and looking at the civil complaints from the 5 different people, one being Cassandra Ventura. Her name also is Cassie. That one's settled. So we look at the other 4. So if I was a betting person looking at those civil complaints, I'm saying that I'm looking at Rodney Jones's, and we're talking RICO because he alleges RICO charges in his civil complaint, as well as the human and sex trafficking federal charge. That one, if I'm correct, I'm going to double check it. I think it's 18 USC 1591. That has an ultimate sentence of up to 25 years in prison. Now, the other thing you have to think about is if you're believing the allegations of Rodney Jones to be true, and there are multiple allegations of trafficking, there's a potential for multiple charges of trafficking. Okay. So it could be one charge of human trafficking, which is 25 years, or it could be multiple that are sentenced consecutively. So right now it's speculation, but you'll look to the civil complaints, and that's what you can.
And I'm glad, let's also make it clear, these are civil complaints. These are accusations that make up a civil lawsuit. Having said that, you could have behavior that is overlaps, right? Have behavior that's civil, but also part of the criminal arena, but these are civil allegations.
Well, the complaint is civil.
Correct.
But what they are accusing in the conduct, and even in the civil complaint, they are criminal statutes.
Correct, yes.
And so you can take, as we've seen, and I'm not drawing the comparison to say that Sean Combs is like these people. I'm just saying that the process is similar.
Right.
You can draw comparisons between Harvey Weinstein, who had civil cases that turned criminal, R. Kelly, Jeffrey Epstein. You can have civil claims that have criminal bases that someone can investigate and move forward on.
So, Colin, let me move it over to you. We have Danny Q from YouTube. What determines if this case is federal or state RICO? I mean, we know it seems to be a federal investigation. Homeland Security, as we talked about, was a part of it. So how do we know, or what makes it something federal versus state?
It's the people from other countries.
Obviously, the HSI went ahead and did the raids, and the concept of RICO gets thrown around a lot. It doesn't get charged very often because there's a very high bar to prove RICO. And basically, a RICO is an enterprise of two or more people that are engaged in specified unlawful acts or criminal activity that's been identified in the statute as, and obviously human trafficking is.
That's fucked up. They got the kids just ride they motherfucking go car past. Like, mommy, the nigger's getting arrested. Oh man, this shit is not a good look. This shit is not a good look. And she wild as hell. Why you taking your kid over there? Just nosy as shit. I'm just walking my kid. Motherfuckers be funny as hell.
Identified there. So what he's going to be charged with, if at all, because he is innocent until proven guilty, we don't know. I mean, that was the purpose of that search warrant, is HSI going in there and gathering all the evidence. And I'm sure they're out doing lots and lots of interviews. And then if there is indeed victims attached to this, as in people that were human trafficked, they're going to be talking to all of them and wrapping this up. And then I think this will come to a head quite quickly because of all of the media attention that's swirling around.
Let me ask you my own question about that, Colin. A lot of people have been wondering, why were charges not in conjunction with the raid? Why did an indictment arrest happen in conjunction with the raid, if you can explain that?
It wasn't.
Well, it might be because they're relying on those complaints that are in those civil lawsuits, as well as some other issues or things that determine probable cause. So the bottom line is that the U.S. Attorney's Office, especially in Los Angeles, is not going to charge somebody unless they feel confident that they have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. So I think the bottom line here is the investigators want to gather everything. The prosecutors that are associated with this, they don't want to pull the trigger too soon, because they want to make sure they get this right the first time, because you only get one chance. Otherwise, if you go too quickly, they might have to dismiss counts or not arrest them at all.
Brian, want to turn this next question over to you. By the way, you can get your questions in on Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitter. Get them any which way you can. All right, so let's go to this question. This is from JT Baller 3 from YouTube. Do we get access to all the information presented in federal cases or not? I know there's no video. Interesting, because let's say an indictment were to come out today or tomorrow. What would be our level? What would our
this PGA season, get more out of every hole on tour with FanDuel,
exactly
America's #1 sports
what they
book.
doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, does the public
access
not deserve
those
to know?
documents? What would we know?
Not just
well,
them,
if the SDNY is running an investigation in coordination,
part of this.
The Southern District of New York is running an investigation in coordination with Miami as well as Los Angeles. Typically, what they do when they do have an indictment, they post on their social media, specifically X or their own website, and they'll put out a blurb of what the allegations are and what they're charging. This is me looking in it in the future if Sean Combs is indicted. So you might get that blurb and some information. We may also get an indictment. But if that information is not presented to the public, what I would tell most people is, just come to Law and Crime. We're going to put in the request. We're going to get the information. I practice in the Southern District of New York. I'll use my Pacer account. We'll get the information to you one way or another. But it is redacted to some point because it is a federal investigation, and they like to play things close to the vest. So we might not get everything until trial starts.
Little self-promotion never hurt anybody. What can I say? Colin, this is a big question. I think you can guess it. If I gave you a multiple choice question about what you think this question is, I think you get it. This is from Kimberly Blankenship from YouTube. Isn't Diddy out of the country as we speak, or has he come back? And then also from the Danish girl from YouTube, did they locate him yet? And as far as I know, we don't have the answer. But having said that, based on the statement from his attorney, based on what we saw in the raid, what do you think you can tell us?
Well, I think it comes down to, we don't know what we don't know. I did see the reporting that he was flying in a jet across the country, but then there was other reporting that that wasn't his Gulfstream. And then there's reporting that he flew out of the country, and then there's reporting that he's in Miami right now. So it's really at that early stage where everybody's making assumptions and kind of trying to fill in the blanks. This is going to shake out very, very quickly. And frankly, somebody of the stature of Mr. Combs, I mean, it would be tough for him to hide anywhere in the world if he indeed wants to hide.
Well, if he also goes to a country that doesn't have extradition, I'm sure that would obviously complicate situations. Although I want to now ask you, Colin, a follow-up question about the raid itself. Received a lot of controversy, I would say, obviously, from Diddy's legal team. They say that this was like a military effort. It was excessive. We have a question from Wheelie Pete from YouTube. Should his homes have been allowed to be raided, given that they were in his daughter's name and the name of the record company? Now, again, I can't confirm if that ownership is correct, but assuming it is, even so, you talk about what was used there. We had armed personnel coming in. People were placed in handcuffs outside. Quite the presence. Walk us through if you think it was
that role. And I get it, moms be lawyers and, you know what I'm saying, stuff, and people be trying to make a point. But they are saying that in the lawsuits that Diddy's sons were the ones who was drugging the liquor. So it be you trying to throw it off and say this and that, but man, y'all got so much evidence stacked against y'all.
Appropriate.
So it's like it's
just unpack that question a little bit. The first thing is using a SWAT team is what they use there. It might even been BORTEC, which is the Border Patrol, their tactical group, which is phenomenal group. The bottom line is they were going to go through probably a checklist of reasons why they would use a tactical response. And the number one reason they would is they may have gotten information that there's firearms in the house. And if that's the case, they want to certainly use whatever resources they have to make sure everybody is safe. Also, based upon the size of that estate, that by the time the officers got to the front door, everybody would have known what their purpose was. So using those tactical resources was absolutely, I think, appropriate because they were concerned about not only their own safety, but the safety of the people there, and they wanted to do it in the safest manner. The second thing, as far as raiding a house that's in somebody else's name, it doesn't matter whose name it is. The warrant's going to say, or the affidavit's going to say that there was alleged or probable cause of criminal activity, or there's indicia of criminal activity is there, and that's what guides those warrants.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because, again, going back to those lawsuits, if you just read it there and you take everything as true, there are allegations of firearms possessions. There are at least 2 shootings that are mentioned in the Little Rod Jones lawsuit implicating Diddy. So, of course, we are going to be following that. All right, we have a question here, Brian. This is from K-Mam from YouTube. What legally needed to happen to allow this raid before an actual arrest? Do we know the probable cause? The civil suits?
So you're kind of answering the question there. It's probable cause. Do we know what the probable cause is? No. At best, I can tell you the level of information that law enforcement needs in order to kind of jump into someone's home and start searching. So it's probable cause, which in layperson's term, I always describe it as the level of information that a reasonable officer would need to suggest that a crime did, is, or will occur. Now, you need some specificities as to that nature of the crime. You could probably look to the civil lawsuits for that, whether it be assault or sex trafficking, specifically probably the video evidence that Rodney Jones says he not only has, but says that Sean Combs also has because he has cameras and recordings inside the home. And so if Rodney Jones is able to sit down and have a conversation from the time that he filed that lawsuit back in February of this year till now, he might be able to give law enforcement enough information to say, you know what, of all of Sean Combs' homes, we believe that Miami and LA have the information we're going to seek for. Let's go convince a judge of that. Let's get those warrants, let's coordinate, and let's move in.
I was speaking to former CIA and FBI agent Tracy Walder, who was of the opinion that this raid happened at that time to preserve evidence. There could have been an issue about whether evidence was going to be discarded in any way. We don't know. Having said that, Brian really hit it on the head that if you read this lawsuit from a former producer of Sean Combs, it suggests that he had cameras in all of the homes in the different homes that he had, and it was video recording some of this illicit sexual acts, possibly as a form of blackmail. Could that be? That's something that they were looking at. Now, Colin, I go to you. This is a question from Gardens of the Gods from YouTube. Law and Crime Network, don't you think Diddy would have not had anything important on home computers? Would he have used unknown office somewhere with VPN and gadgets?
That's a speculation on how he's communicating. The most likely objective of this warrant was to get those tapes, alleged tapes that are there, as well as any other electronic devices that are there, any DVRs, any way of recording that digital evidence. I'm sure that they're going to grab everybody's phones, everybody that was in there, and just basically have a dragnet of evidence, grab everything they can. But the other thing is, if any of this is true, it appears that Mr. Combs or whomever was doing this got to a level of comfort. And so
order Popeye's new honey and lemon pepper wings now and get a 6-piece free when you spend $10 online.
In less than half a second, a
he was like, we bad boy, baby.
Giving your brain a fraction of a second to process, focus, and react. But using weed before your mid-20s.
He was hella telling them.
The fact that they were raiding these homes, it's because the law enforcement thinks that's where the evidence is going to be located.
Yeah.
Let me just follow up with you, Colin, because we have another question from Queen Chrissy from YouTube. Did Sean Combs know he would be raided the night before?
Unlikely. Yeah, I don't think so. I think he felt, he probably had a sense that he's in a lot of trouble based upon those civil lawsuits because he's got the resources to hire very good attorneys who said the things that are in these lawsuits are very, very, very serious. But for him to know exactly when they were going to do this raid is highly unlikely.
All right, Brian, let me turn it over to you. This is a really, really good question. So as we said, these civil lawsuits happen. It was strange for me because I was actually reporting on this about 3-4 weeks ago before Diddy's name was in the news so much. And I was reading these lawsuits. I said, they're alleging criminal conduct. I wonder if criminal charges will happen. Now we see these raids. One of the things that was really interesting, one of the first lawsuits was Cassie Ventura. And she ended up alleging horrible things against Diddy and other individuals, rape, their gun possession. I mean, these illicit sexual acts that were very difficult to even describe. She settles with him the day after, and then we see multiple lawsuits that happen. The reason I ask you this is because Danny from YouTube says, was it a mistake for Diddy to settle the Cassie lawsuit? Good question, right?
Yeah, I mean, hindsight is 2020. I bet you that Sean Combs is probably somewhere pacing right now, thinking the same thing. Yeah. There's a theory out there that you could suggest that settling one lawsuit invited others to have other lawsuits because they thought they could get their payday, so to speak. And it was the culmination of all these lawsuits that led to a criminal investigation. And under that theory, which is a very reasonable one, I can't tell you that it's true or not because I don't have the facts to support it. Yeah, I would say it's a bad idea. But on the flip side, if Sean Combs didn't settle that first case, the discovery process would have been horrendous. You have to sit for depositions. People get to question you. People get to question the other witnesses. Potential witnesses get to get called. You have attorneys like myself who have what's called subpoena power. So we get to call other people to come and testify. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. This might have been the smarter choice, but I think both were difficult choices to make.
And I know he made public comments afterwards. Well, I should say written comments afterwards, but basically said this is like a money grab. The floodgates are open, something to that effect. And clearly the statement released by his attorney yesterday is very consistent with this idea of this is a witch hunt, that this is, he's innocent of all the charges. He hasn't done anything wrong. Colin, go back to you. Got a question from, and hopefully I'm not butchering this, Stewie T from YouTube. It's Stewie, S-T-U-I-E. So interesting. Maybe Stewie. Stewie T from YouTube. Surely, if they raided his homes, he should be arrested and questioned.
Not necessarily. They're going to rely on the evidence, the facts of the crime, and they're going to follow their own process. So it's one of those things we're going to have to see where this goes. And I've done warrants where I haven't arrested the target of the warrant for many months, even a year later, just based upon the fact that I was gathering evidence. Because people got to remember, a search warrant is an evidence gathering tool. It's not an arrest warrant. So this is part of the process, and it may take some time before they go to the next level if indeed Mr. Combs is guilty of any of these things that people are accusing him of.
Let's talk about the next level. This is a really good question. We have great questions from our viewers. This is for Brian. This is Taylor from YouTube. Would they need to go to a grand jury for an indictment?
This would be feds. Yes, for an indictment, but you can also have a special indictment or like an information that's presented just to the judge. I would expect, though, in a case like this, yes. But of course, a grand jury is a secret process. We won't know what type of grand jury. There's special grand juries that collect information. There are grand juries that return indictments. We don't know if they're going to go through one or the other or both. But if you're looking for an indictment, yes, the most common form or process of doing that is through a grand jury.
So, Colin, this is another good question. This almost sets up what I would say, I don't know if it's a defense, but I think this question is wondering if it could be a defense. Shan Caesar from YouTube, is it trafficking, meaning is it sex trafficking, when the participants travel willingly?
This man look crazy.
As my understanding of the Mann Act, that it's very straightforward that if they are transferred for the purpose of sexual purpose, that it still meets the elements of the law. And because the theory behind the law is, are they able to give consent to travel in that circumstance because of they may be under some sort of intimidation or maybe held against their will. We just don't know. But to say they consented to go across state lines for this purpose, you'd have to talk to the victims to figure out what the real story is.
Or if they're minors and they wouldn't be able to consent. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off what Colin is saying as well. Think of it this way. It's less about the travel, more about the destination. And so if you consent to flying to LA, but you know that the destination you're going to have unconsensual sex, that would be a violation of the Mann Act or of human trafficking. It's not necessarily the reason for traveling, but the reason for the destination, I think, is the easiest way to say it. And I think Colin was saying that as well.
And talking about these, so the allegation that you have these people, Brian, that signed NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, right? This is Johnny Infidel from YouTube.
Like,
whether
they,
it's NDA,
it's like people like Diddy and like Vince McMahon and stuff, they really thought these NDAs was gonna save them from this type of shit. It's like they really thought pieces of paper was gonna stop people from talking at some point in their lives. That shit crazy to me.
They settled the lawsuit.
That's really disturbing. There's people out here who have that much power that they think that stuff can just make shit disappear.
Do NDA victims may have signed with Diddy still hold? Or do NDAs go out the window once a criminal investigation has been started? In other words, can they cooperate?
Yeah, so Yes, as the kind of the second part of your question. I'll put it easier this way. You can't NDA criminal acts. I can't walk up and punch Jesse Weber in the face and be like, sign this NDA and don't tell anyone I assaulted you. That's not necessarily the way that it works. Another component to that as well is if you look at the Rodney Jones lawsuit, part of his NDA is that he wasn't paid appropriately. So an NDA is a quid pro quo. I won't speak if you pay up properly. And so Rodney Jones would say, my NDA is not even legit. So
it's a contract. There has to be an agreement.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Colin, let me go to this. This is from Nikki Hayes from YouTube. Will all of the footage of the security cameras he has be taken as part of the raid? Interesting question, because we talked about earlier, one of the allegations put forward by Rodney Jones is that on that camera footage at Diddy's properties is evidence of illicit sexual activity or even just blackmail. Some videos that may tend to show some of these relationships that are being alleged by Jones. So again, the question is, will all the footage of the security cameras be taken?
Absolutely. And HSI most likely brought in experts in digital forensics that will know how to get to those videos that are stored on DVRs or computers or some sort of digital devices. And they are going to take everything digitally that they can get their hands on.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take more of your questions. Again, submit them on Facebook, submit them on YouTube, submit them on X.
That we gonna leave that video there. That's crazy. All of these charges that's pending against this man, and to me, it's just how long this stuff has been going on and who's all involved. Right now they just focusing on Diddy, and they gonna focus on, you know what I'm saying, the other people in the industry that was partaking in it as well. I've been hearing a lot of things saying that Jay-Z and Beyonce are next and all of that, right? But my thing is that, not saying that these people don't need to be brought to justice, because they do, but we need to bring to justice the people who are facilitating it, who are paying these P. Diddy's and Jay-Z's and help them out, you know what I'm saying, to be able to do these things. That's why I feel like the focus needs to be drawn to, and hopefully this is the start of that truly coming out. But with that being said, I hope you guys like the video. This stuff is crazy. But go ahead and hit that like button for me, and comment below if you guys think that it's more to this situation than what's being led on. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever I drop a video. And with that being said, KingMarcell out. Peace.